This running game is non-existent. I see people trashing Saquon Barkley left and right. Oh, Saquon's lost a step. Saquon's not as explosive. I want you to just go back. Let me go all over Twitter because there are smarter people than me that have done film breakdowns. This is not a Saquon Barkley issue. Is Saquon Barkley pausing at the line like he typically does to try to find a hole? He is. Does Tank Bigsby pause? No. Tank Bigsby just runs. He just takes the ball and tries to bowl through as many people as he can, as quickly as he can, as strongly as he can. And maybe that's what the Eagles offense needs right now. But Saquon typically takes a moment to look for the hole, and then he explodes through it, except the holes aren't there. I would argue a large part of that is, 1, Mekhi Becton is no longer here. 2, Cam Jurgens is hurt. 3, Landon Dickerson is hurt. 4, Lane Johnson was out. And 5, Jordan Mailata doesn't quite look as good as he did last year. Well, that just happens to be your entire offensive line that have their own issues. Everybody has an issue. I love Jordan Mailata. I don't think he looks as good this year. Okay? I just don't. I think a lot of that maybe has something to do with no Mekhi Becton. And now, it feels like every game we're forced to look at Steen, right? He's not good. You see a guy like Matt Pryor come into games, he's not good. Cam Jurgens had his lunch eaten yesterday. Had his lunch absolutely eaten on the interior. Landon Dickerson, I'm convinced, is not healthy and has not been healthy since training camp. I am fully convinced that the back issue that he's had has not gotten any better. And there was another injury, I forget what it was, but Landon Dickerson I don't think is healthy. And then you're missing Lane Johnson. And now I get that we historically have looked over this and said, all right, anytime Lane Johnson's out, you're pretty screwed. Like the Eagles do not win a lot of games when Lane Johnson's out, and that's true. And if this were a slog, if this were like a 14-7 final score, a 14-10 final score, and you had to scrap and claw for every single yard, that'd be one thing. But you went up 21-0. So, apologies if I'm not willing to just allow the Eagles to play the Lane Johnson card. There are issues with this offensive line. That is very clear. Emmanuel Acho went on to his podcast and he slammed Saquon Barkley and essentially said Saquon Barkley is largely to blame for what has happened to this Eagles offense. He went over on Speakeasy, his show with LaShawn McCoy. And so I'll give you real quick, a little sample, a little nugget of Emmanuel Acho, and if it's fair or not. Because then there was a Philly media person, a former Eagle, who then came out and railed against Emmanuel Acho. Let's go out to Emmanuel Acho first, talking about Saquon Barkley's drop-off this season.
This is some bull crap. How Saquon? He's best player on the field.
It's about 2 minutes, 50 seconds in the game. It's 1st and 10. Throw a swing pass to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley does a spin move on air on the sideline. DeMar being overshown.
He did. He actually did a double spin. He spun like as the ball was coming in, and then he tried another one. He got taken down on the sideline. That's fair.
Tackles him.
Bad move.
Now it's 2nd and 10. We get you the ball to Saquon Barkley again. Saquon Barkley, if you do not slip for whatever reason, it's a 1st down. Eagles are driving. You slip.
That's the play where he has it looks like in any other scenario, he does have a defender coming in, but like virtually any other scenario you could play out, Saquon Barkley picks up that 1st down, you get to the other side of the 2-minute warning, and Jake Elliott kicks a field goal, and you win the game. And instead you end up in that 3rd and 2, and then Hurts gets sacked.
Once again, now it's 3rd and 2. Terrible play call, so you can sprinkle some blame as well on to Kevin Patullo. It's 3rd and 2. Like 2 minutes, 15 seconds left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Just run the ball. Even if you gain no yards, you push. But you try to pass the ball, you get sacked. Correct. To me, Saquon Barkley has been a non-factor this season, and it's time we call it out.
So there are people that have tried to call out the idea that Saquon Barkley hasn't been as effective. But in doing so, you have to look at what the offensive line has and has not created in front of him. And that ultimately is where we come back to the sense of reason, the voice of reason, a guy who like this year I think has done like a total face turn. Seth Joyner, because Seth Joyner heard what Emmanuel Acho had to say, and he lit Emmanuel Acho's ass up big time. All right, let's go out to Seth Joyner here for a moment. Seth Joyner does not agree with Emmanuel Acho's analysis. Let's go out to Seth Joyner.
Social media saying the same thing. I'm watching Emmanuel Acho yesterday, him and Shady in their podcast, and he's talking about, nobody's talking about Saquon's not what he was. Man, shut the hell up. Because you know what? You don't know anything. If you're a football guru and you're watching football with your eyes, especially as a defensive player, and you're looking at how pathetic this offensive line is playing right now, there's not a thing in your mind that says that you believe that Saquon Barkley is not what he was, okay?
Correct. Here's where I'd be concerned. If Saquon Barkley were to get out in space and look slow, I'd be concerned. If Saquon Barkley were to get out with time and space in a one-on-one scenario against a defender and find himself unable to even remotely get free of that defender, I'd be worried. Now, have there been moments this season where Saquon Barkley hasn't maybe been as quick to lower the shoulder and get into the physical play? There have been a few. He seems to try to be more evasive than confrontational. And I wonder if there might be an underlying injury that would maybe explain that. But I don't think this is on Saquon Barkley. I mentioned earlier in the show, like Tank Bigsby, Tank Bigsby doesn't really think. He just grabs the ball and he tries to put a hole in somebody. It's almost like watching, in some ways, it's kind of like watching Derrick Henry run at times, right? This dude just runs north-south. There's no east-west in his game. He doesn't actually know that east and west exist. He just runs forward. And a lot of times it works. But again, Tank Bigsby, for as good as he's been, he's not the guy that you're really trying to build the offense around or that you're trying to make a focal point of the offense. If the Eagles are great with Saquon Barkley, the ceiling of the team is significantly higher than it is if Tank Bigsby's finding success. No offense to Tank Bigsby. Now, this is all just part of the frustration around the team. Now, Saquon Barkley is one of the people who was made available after the game. And so I would be remiss if we didn't go out to Saquon to get his feelings on his play and where things are at right now. And we know that Saquon Barkley is widely regarded as a very good leader and a guy who's accountable. And so this should come as no surprise, but Saquon Barkley met with the media and he took full responsibility for his play. Let's go out to Saquon.
Got to go respond. We didn't do that. We got to go respond. We got to do a better job putting teams away. And we didn't do that, and I definitely didn't help. Usually, obviously last year, other games, I was a big part of that. It's been kind of non-existent this year. So I got to figure it out for teams. I'm going to get it right.
So there you go. He ends up with saying, I'm going to get it right. But he admits he's not really been a big part of the success this year. Certainly not like last year. That is the kind of accountability you want. Now, there were others that came out after the game and had other thoughts. And I talked about the offensive line earlier. And so we're going to, I know this feels like rapid fire, but we're going to go out there for a second. I'm actually going to skip one of the ones, but I mentioned earlier that Landon Dickerson talked about the fact that the Cowboys sent 5-man fronts and it wasn't something they were used to. He kind of said that, you don't have all the time in the world to try to run every potential look and every potential play in practice, but that what the Cowboys ended up showing them is something that they hadn't really seen a lot of before. That comes down to preparation. Is that on Stoutland? Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe one of the most interesting quotes of the post game came from Fred, don't call him Lane Johnson. Fred Johnson was asked about why the run game isn't working. And Fred Johnson had a very, very short response to it. Let's go out to Fred Johnson. Fred, why isn't the Eagles running game working?
In the run game from getting going.
I'm not a coach.
I have no idea. I'm not a coach. Short and sweet. Good job to Fred Johnson. Get in, get out, get on with life. Now, the number one issue that I had from this game, other than the coaching and other than the absolutely woeful attempt to do anything of value, were the penalties. The Eagles committed a bevy of penalties, which they've done a lot this year. I think they're up to 5 games now with 7 or more penalties, 8 or more penalties. It's been horrible. And the only person who seemed to shout that out in a really meaningful way post-game was Jordan Mailata. So we're going to wrap up our little tour around the offensive line because that ultimately is what Jordan Mailata thinks really did doom the team on Sunday. It was the issues that they had with penalties. Let's go out to Jordan Mailata. Jordan, let us in.
Playing behind the sticks in the first and second down. Just the penalties that have been very costly to us. That just requires focus. Honestly, it's something that takes no talent, and so we're professionals. We should be I shouldn't be false starting, shouldn't be holding, and all that stuff really adds on to. Then when we get to third down and we're just okay, we're third down and 7 or third down and 11, just really unfavorable down the distances to try and trick the defense when they know, shoot, they got 11 yards to gain the first down and it's probably going to be a pass. So, we are putting ourselves in a pretty predictable, I guess, down and distance when it comes to third down. But that's just because of how we're handling the first and second down. We're not taking care of the business up front or just shooting ourselves in the foot. So,
kind of tells the story, doesn't it? I think that's it. Penalties are something you can control, largely. The inability to line up properly, that's something you can control. The ability to not go and move early, that is under your control. There was a pass interference call in this game that I thought was absolutely mind-numbing, where CeeDee Lamb goes and essentially stiff arms the defender, like right under the chin. And yeah, there was contact both ways, but that ended up being the kind of play that blew the game open as well.